Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of Killer Academy. So, this is very much inspired by Fish Sticks on a Stick's Bad Weapon Academy, and I'm going to be trying to take a look at the killers that I consider to be the worst in the game and try to tell you how to best utilize them. And for this, I'm going to be going with what me and many other people would consider to be one of the worst killers in the game, Legion. So, looking at their stats, they don't even seem that bad. In fact, they actually kind of seem overpowered. But when you actually get into it, they're just not. In fact, they're almost the exact opposite in that they are, as I said, considered to be one of the worst killers, but we need to actually look at their power to find out why. So, their ability is called Feral Frenzy, and when it's active, you move faster, and you gain the ability to vault pallets, windows, and you get the ability that when you hit a survivor, it actually puts them into the deep wound. Now, if you don't know what that is, it is a bleeding effect where if the survivor doesn't mend themselves, they will go down. Yeah, as I said, this sounds extremely good, but when you look into it, it isn't. So let's start with that Feral Frenzy and increased movement speed. This is not bad, actually. It lets you apply quite a bit of gen pressure as a killer that really needs it. And in general, it's very useful for getting across the map fast, but in all, it doesn't really take all that. It's not that big of a difference when you actually look at it side by side. It's still noticeably faster, but you could definitely live without it. And as for that pallet vault, that again seems like it'd be insanely good. But because of the stats we'll talk about next, it just is very meh. So, the Feral Frenzy gives the killer the ability to not only vault across pallets and increase their movement speed, but it has the Feral Slash, which is when you hit a survivor, it puts them into the deep wound status effect, which actually does more damage than the injured effect. So, by going into your ability and doing a simple M1, you now have done more damage with faster speed than most killers can do. This is seriously impressive, but here's the thing. All attacks after that, if you're not using an add-on, don't deal additional damage. Yeah, that's the stat that kneecaps this thing. There are some things that you can use, like Frank's Mixtape, in order to get it to where each hit will decrease the amount of time it takes to bleed out, and hitting them enough times will completely make them bleed out. But without it, you're just a slightly better M1 killer. And when you have an entire roster of killers just waiting for you to play them, most of which have extremely unique abilities, it makes Legion just this nothing killer. Because, let's be real, when are you just going to be walking around M1ing people? That's something that level 1 trappers and level 3 wraiths do. Wait a minute. Okay, but when every killer has some sort of advantage to their side, be it Huntress's increased range, Doctor's tracking capabilities, surprise effects of Hag, the surprise effects of Spirit, the surprise effects of Pig, the surprise effects of Ghostface. You get the point. It makes this character seem extremely nothing. Even that little undetectable, which you wouldn't think, as that one stat would make them that much better, but literally just having the undetectable status effect is already more than Legion is capable of doing 90% of the time. Which is really sad to me, because Legion was one of my favorite killers when I started playing the game. I still remember to this day watching the trailer, seeing the killer put on a mask next to a survivor and being like, holy crap. Wait, does this person have the ability to disguise as survivors? No. Wait, they can rush vault over pallets and windows? That's pretty cool. Oh, wait. They do less damage on every hit after the initial hit? You can still kill them, right? Right? No. See, what makes Legion the weird case is that they just are a lot of nothing. That's really it. But, so, let's try to fix that. I will be talking about it for quite a while, and let's just see. I'll try to show you how you can best utilize their ability. Another thing that I want to mention is that both getting out of your feral frenzy, whether it's from the timer or manually, almost completely stops your movement. This is very bad, and not only that, but the corner of your screen darken. Oh, this is just like, it's such a weird thing to have on a killer that's already so weak, but as if that's not enough, it doesn't last for that long, even if you are running add-ons. So you're essentially forcing yourself to either play as entirely an M1 killer, or to not play the game at all. Like, this killer is such a confused killer, because it seems like it should be a nurse-type killer, where you're a menace when you have a vision on a killer, or on a survivor, and you can do insane gen pressure. But the thing is, Legion is just not built that way, which is really sad. As for the bleed out effect, I've only ever actually had that come into play once, and it was when I downed somebody, and instead of mending, I don't think that they actually knew how Legion worked, and they got downed from hiding in a locker. Other than that, those really weird situations where the person doesn't know they can spend 5 seconds to mend themselves, effect isn't really all that worth it. And on top of that, figured out that, as I had mentioned earlier in the video, the effect of the bleeding doesn't actually, you can't down somebody if you're running the add-on, which is really bad. So in all, you're just an M1 killer, and characters like Wraith can just do your job better, since at least he's faster. And it really doesn't matter all that much unless the survivor runs back into you after being hit. It's just so much of a nothing effect. And the recovery on sprint time, both the darkening of the vision and the amount of time it takes to get back up to that time, is so long. And I never find myself actually getting use of it, because of the fact that you have to either choose, do you want to exit out early to hit a survivor with an attack that actually deals damage, or do you want to take a dice roll on having to wait the entire length of the recharge time? It's insane. But the effect isn't all that useless, especially if a Fang thinks that she's being stealthy, and the essential added damage plus the mix of speed that your killer can actually be pretty devastating to a lot of survivors. It's kind of insane how fast you can be mixed with how much damage you can do in a single hit. But then again, after that initial hit, you do essentially nothing. So what's the point of the bleed out effect if you could just sprint and hit? It'd be so much better. I find myself not using it often against people that are either A, just walking in straight lines, so they're easier to just hit regularly and not waste your time with the effect that you get after you cancel, or B, only ever using it against people that are full health, because it does literally nothing against people that are down any amount of health. It would be so much more satisfying if they at least made it to where if you kept hitting people, the bleed out timer would fade like the add-on, but, you know, actually work. But when the iridescent add-on to where you can, all survivors will hear you everywhere across the map when you sprint, keeps them so feared that they don't go for either of their hooked survivors, even when you're not close to them, that's a serious benefit. And I think that that's the main power of Legion, his add-on, and that single add-on at it. Because the ability to get everybody in the game paranoid that you're always after them really benefits you as Legion. And I know it benefits you as any killer, as you can see with Doctor, who on paper as a tracker killer is similar to Legion, but because of the fact that he just does everything way more efficiently than Legion, he's infinitely more useful. But I must say, when you can chain together multiple hemorrhage stabs on a group of survivors, it can be pretty insane the amount of damage they deal. Because either they're all going to have to waste time self-mending, or they're going to try to mend other people, not do generators, and go down because they're mending other people and not themselves. All of these things mixed together to actually form a decently strong way to play him. Pure tracker. Especially if you run this with Insidious, you can be an oppressive, tracking, essentially body camper. I found nooks and crannies that I usually wouldn't be hiding in, like right here, to be especially helpful with this. As a lot of people will say Insidious with Legion doesn't make much sense, but because of the fact that you can close the distance on a hook really, really fast, it does give it some viability. And you could always try to do some big brain plays like I did right here, where you try to get in front of the person that you already hit to make sure that you're actually going to block them from the hook. But then again, you could just play Nurse, Bubba, anyone who can actually swing and deal damage, and you wouldn't have to resort to this. But I can't say that it's not a strat, as blocking people from unhooking can actually be decently powerful, and you'd find yourself using it a good bit. As for his perks, let's pretend right here I was running Iron Maiden and they were running Head On. This person in the locker would be completely screwed, because they would know either they get out and try to take a hit, which they're already down a health state, or they just get grabbed. Either way, they're backed into a corner, and that's why I actually find Iron Maiden to be a really useful killer perk, especially against countering Head On and forcing people to disconnect. I've also noticed that survivors will focus a lot more on pulling a pallet directly on top of you, because it's not an option anymore to just pull it to buy time and get distance between you and the killer. With Legion being able to fast vault that also breaks the pallet, I found this especially useful for countering people who would just try to get distance between you and them. Not only that, but you can see that I left the Meg to pursue this person that I was able to see using Legion's unique tracking ability. It can come in some serious help in these situations where you know that somebody is injured and you just see them off in the distance. Because having the ability to see where somebody is just by hitting another killer, and doing more damage at that, is really useful. And I can't understate how often it's actually come into play. Most of my kills and large chain kills in these games have come because of the ability to see the other survivors. But then again, I have to come up with the other thing, that you are leaving a survivor who could very much survive this event because you actually left them, which lets them heal. But I feel like it's still an option to go for an extreme tracking play rather than somebody who just hard focuses a single survivor, which is how Legion's supposed to be played. So, yeah. Also, with the Iridescent add-on, it's extremely satisfying to make people think that you're going to be nowhere near them with that super loud heartbeat, just for them to figure out, no, you were on top of them doing a generator. This comes into play actually quite a bit using this add-on, and it's what makes it Legion's best add-on, and not even by a little bit, saying that his others are virtually useless. So, the mix of ability to terrorize people with extreme paranoia like Doctor does, but also have the advanced movement speed, is actually quite viable.